Niners now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And today we are going to be going over all the winners and losers from the 49ers Week 4 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But stick around later on the show because some rumors are starting to fly concerning the 49ers' next opponent, the Rams. Their fans might not be as loud as we are led to believe. Before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below, leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So to start off this video, I do want to go over some standouts and some duds from Sunday's game in our Week 4 stock report. And just as a heads up, this segment was pretty tricky to write. It was a lot of bad from the 49ers on Sunday, but there were two 49ers in particular who I thought really stood out in a good way. So I've got two guys with stock up and two guys with stock down today. Now let's start with the positive. Upton Stout is getting better every single week. It is a slow process, all right? He is certainly not perfect, but every single week he is slowly getting better, and every single week he is giving you maximum effort. Stout was the subject of a lot of conversation this week with his overturned interception. We'll hear more about that later in the show. Stout was covering Travis Hunter on that play, the number 2 overall pick who Jacksonville traded a future first-round pick for. But Stout was competing, he made a phenomenal play, and he got dinged with a ticky-tack penalty that really altered the course of this game. Stout's physicality and his mentality are his strengths, and I hope going forward that he can make those kinds of plays, but completely clean. Don't even give the refs the chance to throw kind of an iffy flag, right? Regardless, I do think that this is progress for Upton Stout, and I think he's certainly raising his stock. Now, next in the stock up category is a 49er who made his season debut on Sunday. It's backup defensive tackle Jordan Jefferson. Now, Jefferson has been a healthy scratch for the first 3 weeks, playing behind the 4 other defensive tackles on the Niners roster. But with no CJ West in this game, Jefferson stepped in against his former team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and played pretty well in minimal snaps, I thought. He looked very strong, he held up nicely against the run, and he took on double teams with consistency. That's what Jefferson was brought in to do. He was a fantastic run defender in college at LSU, and he was drafted to play that role in the NFL. Now, the Jags didn't have room for him on the roster this year after his rookie season last year, which means the 49ers were lucky enough to grab a nice run defender to add to their room. I'd like to see Jefferson more in the next couple of weeks. He looks better and more consistent against the run than any other D tackle on the roster so far. Now, it is a very small sample size, of course. Jefferson only played 12 snaps. But the Jaguars attacked the Niners D-line by double-teaming both defensive tackles on run plays. This is a blocking scheme often called duo, right? Both DTs get doubled. In the 49ers case, they get blown off the line of scrimmage, and the Jaguars get excellent room to run the ball. Jordan Jefferson is strong enough and has good enough technique to shut those plays down. And you know that the Rams and the Buccaneers, with their talented running backs and coaching staffs, will probably attack the 49ers in a similar way. So I would like to see Jefferson play more, and hopefully this level of play can continue with more snaps for Jefferson. Stock up for him. Now, unfortunately, my first stock down player is none other than Brock Purdy. It was clear to me that Purdy's not operating at 100%. He looked a little stiffer in the pocket, and he had passes sailing too high over and over again in Week 4. And that all indicates that there's issues with his base, right? His legs and his feet. And this makes sense considering that turf toe injury is still bothering him. Brock said all the right things after the game. He's a tough guy and he battled through the injury, but he's not healthy right now and it's holding him back. And 3 turnovers in this game, it's not good at all, especially when a couple of them were avoidable. With a better throw, I think that first interception would not have been an interception. It might have even been a touchdown. McCaffrey had a ton of room on that play. And on the fumble, Brock held onto the ball for over 3.5 seconds. You got to get the ball out in that situation. There's plenty of reasons that Brock did not play well on Sunday, but they aren't excuses, right? You just got to play better. Stock down for Mr. Brock Purdy. And I've got one more guy to talk about now. It's Kendrick Bourne. My God, man, Bourne was horrendous in this game. He had a severe case of the drops, and he hasn't had the most secure hands in his return to San Francisco, but that really showed up on Sunday. Multiple key drops that would have gone for big first downs, with the worst one obviously being that wide open crosser over the middle of the field. It was not a good look at all for Kendrick Bourne, who's supposed to be a veteran who can really stabilize the passing game. The whole reason you go get a guy like KB is because he knows the scheme and he can hold down the fort while other guys are injured. But he hasn't done anything to stabilize so far. He's played 3 games now with the 49ers and doesn't look any better than he did in week 2. His run blocking was pretty horrendous on the outside. I'm not sure what happened. Did he just forget that Kyle asks his wide receivers to block? Maybe he got used to New England where they lose games and they don't block on the outside. It's not good enough at all from Kendrick Bourne. He's got to be better, much better, if the Niners have any shot of winning on Thursday. So that is it for the stock report. We've got stock up for Upton Stout and Jordan Jefferson, but stock down for Brock Purdy and Kendrick Bourne. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and let me know if I missed anyone on this week's stock report. Now, the 49ers got some great news on Monday that I did not get to talk about when the NFL announced that the 49ers Buccaneers game in week 6 will be flexed to the late slate of games. And flexed just basically means it'll be swapping places with the Patriots Saints game, which will now move into the early slate. First of all, if you're planning on going to that Buccaneers game, just a heads up, it will now start 3 hours later. But why is this such great news? Why am I so excited about this? Well, we identified this Buccaneers matchup as one of the most difficult games on the schedule for the Niners this year. The Bucs are a really talented team, and they have so much fight. I mean, you saw that comeback against Philadelphia, who's the best team in the league. It was amazing to watch. Now, of course, the Bucs couldn't finish the job, but regardless, this is a hard matchup for San Francisco. And it was even harder when you look into the fact that the Niners would be traveling to the East Coast and playing at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which has been known to mess with the body clocks of West Coast teams. It's really difficult to travel cross country and win in that early slate. So the NFL pushing this game back into the later slate is a really big win for the Niners. Now, the Bucs don't have that advantage anymore, and the playing field is not only even, it might even skew towards the 49ers. This is the way that the schedule makers kind of justified this cross-country 10 a.m. game. I'm assuming this, they said, all right, Buccaneers get the advantage of having the 49ers come cross-country and play in the early window, but the 49ers play this game after the mini bye week, which is that a few extra days of rest that a team gets after playing on Thursday Night Football. So the idea is that the Niners get a few days of rest, and then the Buccaneers get the early game advantage, right? It was supposed to balance out. But now, the Niners still keep the mini bye, and the Buccaneers no longer have that advantage. The 49ers are going to need all the help and all the little breaks like this that they can get, especially in the next month or so when their schedule is more difficult than it will be all year. So this is a pretty big adjustment, and who knows? Maybe it is the difference between a win and a loss. We'll keep an eye out come week 6. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, the 49ers have a Thursday night game this week against the hated LA Rams in Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium. So this week, we get to celebrate the annual tradition of Levi's South. Anytime the 49ers travel to SoFi Stadium, there's a huge contingent of 49ers faithful there already. And that's going to continue on Thursday. According to Vivid Seats, 61% of the crowd is projected to be 49ers fans. That is a huge number for an away game. 61% of the away team's fans. That is wild. There will be nearly twice as many 49ers fans as there are Rams fans in the Rams home stadium. The Niner faithful always travel well, but especially in LA. I cannot wait to be a part of that contingency. You're going to hear firsthand from me just how many 49ers fans there really were when I recap the game on Friday. I'll have the accurate report for you guys. Now, there's also been some interesting comments about SoFi and its crowds online recently that I want to talk about. Indianapolis Colts safety Cam Bynum went on the Downs to Business podcast, a show hosted by his Colts teammate, wide receiver Josh Downs. And Bynum accused the Rams of pumping crowd noise into their stadium. Bynum said, quote, "They play fake crowd noise. Their crowd isn't that turned. The Rams, they have a good fan base, but they moved around so much, so it's not like true fans. It's more like a celebrity show in there. On third down, you see the crowd is sitting down, and like somehow there's noise coming from somewhere. We're just looking around last year, where like that noise is coming from the speakers because nobody's turned up right now." End quote. Now, playing artificial crowd noise in a stadium is not illegal by NFL rules, but the noise cannot exceed 70 decibels. And if it does, then teams are subject to fines or even forfeited draft picks, as a punishment for breaking that rule. If it's noticeable by the players, I have to assume that this crowd noise is pretty loud, or that the Rams fans are really quiet, so any level of crowd noise is noticeable. Either way, Bynum wasn't the only one to take notice of this. Former 49ers long snapper Tabor Pepper weighed in on this on his Twitter account, saying, quote, "Anytime I think about the Rams, I think about how much crowd noise was pumped in the stadium during that NFC Championship game. Never heard SoFi that loud before or after that game, and I'm pretty sure the Niner fans were still the majority of ticket holders that game too." End quote. Now, Pepper is, of course, talking about the Niners-Rams NFC Championship game back in 2021, so it sounds like this is certainly not a one-time thing from the Rams. I wonder if they'll be investigated by the league for this. Honestly, I hope that the noise will be a relevant factor on Thursday, because there's very few things as frustrating as going silent count in your home stadium. So hopefully 49ers fans can get loud. We've forced the Rams into using their silent count at home before, and I'm hoping that 61% of the crowd rooting for the Niners can force them to do that once again. Now, for our last segment, I want to talk about John Lynch's comments on KNBR. On Tuesday, Lynch was on KNBR like he usually is about once a week, and he had some pretty interesting comments about Week 4. He did come out in support of Upton Stout, as the entire organization has so far. Lynch said that he didn't like the call and that overturned interception was a, quote, game-changing play. And I agree, for the record. That play absolutely changed the game. But what I want to talk about today is Lynch's thoughts on the defensive line. He said, and I quote, "You have to hit the quarterback in this league. We got to find a way to put the quarterback under duress. I don't think we did a good enough job of that. We have to find a way to do that, especially with Matt Stafford." And I agree with Lynch on this as well. Stafford is a great quarterback, and he will certainly be getting the ball out quickly this Thursday. But if you can get the Rams behind the chains and you can force them into third and longs, Stafford has been known to toss an interception your way. He's still very good, and it won't be easy, but if you can pressure Stafford, you can force a mistake. Now, unfortunately, there's two issues. First, the 49ers need to capitalize on those mistakes when they do happen, which they were completely unable to do last week. And second, they need to actually put pressure on Stafford to try and force those mistakes, which should be much more difficult this week than it was against the Jaguars. And we had enough trouble against the Jaguars anyways. We'll get into it more in the Rams preview video tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. But the pass rush has to be better, plain and simple. And John Lynch clearly knows that, and he's acknowledging it. So I can't help but wonder, if Thursday is another game with very little pass rush, could the 49ers swing a trade? In my last video, I talked about all my favorite targets to go out and get. So what if the Niners have a new defensive lineman by the time Week 6 rolls around? It seems clear to me that Lynch is not happy with how the unit is playing without Nick Bosa. So maybe a move is in the works. Trey Hendrickson, come on down. So that is it for this episode. Do you think the 49ers will make a trade in the next couple of weeks? Let me know down below. Also, leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you would like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.